Okay, we're going to try this again. So, thank you for those of you who are blowing up my phone who knew me. Were like, hey, we can't hear you. Some of you could hear me, and some of you couldn't. So, we're going to do this second live here, just talking about breaking down your goals. And thank you for stopping by. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. It gave me an opportunity to warm up my tea here. I'm drinking. It's a little warm here in the Midwest, so I actually got some cold tea in my mug here. But thank you all for joining me. It is very good to see you. We're going to talk about breaking down your goals today, and it's interesting that I, first and foremost, I want to thank for all of you guys who stopped by, and many of you who have joined my community recently. I literally just started my community on School not too long ago. And if you would like to join the community, there's no cost to join as it is right now. I just put the link not only in the description, but also in the comments section. So if you are interested, go ahead and join. I will be closing that off for the free enrollments as it sits right now. But if you are interested, this is the sort of stuff that we talk about. Today, we're going to be talking about breaking down your goals. And listen, 2025 was a heck of a year for me. And I'm really, really grateful for all the things that I was able to get accomplished. I got a lot of things accomplished in 2025. 2025 was a really good year for me. And I will say it was not without its own costs, but I knew those costs going in. And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about 2025 was the fact that I was able to enroll the people that were closest to me into my vision. And specifically tonight, I'm going to be talking about breaking things down from a business vision perspective. So for those of you who are looking maybe for more personal goals, listen, everything everything has to exist to serve your personal vision. And that is really important for me because creating a personal vision that does not or you're creating a business vision that doesn't serve my personal vision, that makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense to do that, to create this personal vision that doesn't, or I'm sorry, to create this business vision that doesn't serve my personal vision. And what we're going to talk about tonight for a period of time is we're going to go into creating a 36-month business vision. So if you've got a business vision that you want to hit in 2026 that you didn't hit in 2025, it's going to be really important that you follow some of these things tonight because we're just going to go through this and unpack a really solid goal setting process. It's not complicated, it's not hard to do. You just got to take a little bit of time to do it. And if you are not happy with the things, how things turned out in 2025, look, I get it. But I also published not just the time wealthy advantage in 2025, which was part of my goals coming out of 2024. I really wanted to get the book published, not only published but completed and published in 2025. I also wanted to sell it. That would have made my life, unbelievably easier, not just writing a book that no one buys. But this is where I really had to get intentional about how I was putting my goals out there and also enrolling the people in my life that most affected that, trying to reach that goal. So that's where I see a lot of people who set goals go wrong is they don't enroll the people in their lives that are closest to them and let them know, hey, this is important to me. I really want to. I not necessarily that you're going to have them hold you accountable because that's not necessarily their job. That's not the job of your brother, your sister, your mother, your spouse. Like that's not really necessarily their job. And I think that often taxes a lot of people, especially who are in family businesses that don't take the time to really say, hey, look, I really could use your help in holding me accountable to this. And if you can get them on board, it's really more about removing that as an obstacle. So, this is something that I refer to as a presupposition, right? You're presupposing what could derail you in advance. So thinking in advance, like, okay, I'm going to set this goal coming up. Now that you're taking that presupposition, you're saying, okay, well, what would stop me from doing this? What would stop me? What would get in my way of doing this? Okay, well, let me think about this. If my goal is to get out of bed and at the gym, be at the gym by 5 a.m. That means I might have to get up at 4:30 or 4:45. And if you haven't told anybody in your house that you're planning on getting up at 4:45 in the morning to be out the door at 5, and meanwhile they just want to kind of snuggle up against you and it's already hard enough to get out of bed, that's going to be hard. That's going to be tricky. That's going to be difficult. So this is why it's important for you to enroll these other people, not necessarily from an accountability perspective, but just say, hey, I really could use whatever support that you could offer me, some encouragement, or just saying, hey, look, I don't necessarily want to get up and do this with you, but I will support you in this goal if it's that important to you. This is why presuppositions are so important, is to think in advance of what could derail you from hitting those goals in advance. So what we're going to be talking about tonight over the next, half hour or so is breaking these things down from a 3-year business vision all the way down to what you're doing each day. Right now, it's not hard to do. And it's not that complex. It's just you got to take the time to do it. Now, what I've noticed, and I'm basing this 36-month, and when I say a 36-month business vision, I'm talking a 3-year business vision. I'm talking a business vision that goes from month 25 to month 36. So if you've got a business, a side hustle, if you're a coach or an advisor or a consultant or whatever, I see a lot of coaches out there who really struggle with this with their own goal setting. And interestingly enough, someone told me, and I don't have data to back this up, so don't shoot the messenger, but someone told me that most coaches don't ever break 6 figures. And I was like, holy crap, I could actually see why that would be true. And the reason why is not only is there so many coaches out there, but none of them are differentiating themselves from one to the next. They're just like, oh, I'm a life coach. Oh, I'm a business coach. Okay, how are you any different than the person who's also saying that they're a business coach, who literally has no experience in business? They just happen to be a little bit more compelling in their message and people want to buy their stuff. You might be really, really good at what you do, but unless or until you start differentiating yourself and allowing yourself to have a better, not just a better message, but a better offer. And most business owners, especially, and I see this with business owners, I especially see this with coaches, is they look at what the universe of coaches and business owners are doing that's similar to what they do, and that's how they base their pricing. I get it. I did the same thing once, and I was like, you know what? I never felt right about it, but this is exactly why there's lots of business owners that are just getting by. There's lots of coaches that are just getting by. And they're not really being strategic about their pricing at all. They're not testing the market. They're not testing anything. They're just throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks. So when we're going to be talking about your 36-month business vision, your 3-year business vision, your month 25 to month 36, thank you. If I appreciate that, thank you. If you are, yeah, I know the video I had posted, I know, I know, I appreciate that. Someone's mentioning that I had my sound wasn't working. It wasn't working for something. I think it was working on the online, but it wasn't working on the phone, on the video feed. So now it's all working, I guess. Anyway, this is what I'm just sharing with you guys now. Is it's really important when you're breaking down these goals, when you're breaking down the goals for your 3-year, your month 25 to month 36, that 3rd year is what is the culmination of everything that you've learned from month 0 to month 12, right? And as you're breaking down those 12-month goals, you're breaking them down into 90-day projects and breaking them all the way down to monthly goals, weekly goals, and then a daily 5. So let's talk about your 3-year business vision. Why is the 3-year business vision so important? Because I want that to be the knock the cover off the ball moment for you. I want that to be the knock the cover off the ball. Your life would be totally amazing if you realize whatever it is, your 10x goal, your 20x goal, whatever, in year 3. Now, this is super unpopular, and I hear this because everybody just thinks like, oh, this is my year. Man, how many years have you said this is my year? It doesn't mean you need to give up on goal setting. It means you need to look at your goal setting differently. Several years ago, I started talking about writing the time wealthy advantage. And I really wasn't getting a lot of traction, but I was learning about what I wanted to write about. That's why it took about 3 years to get that thing from start to finish. Now, I wasn't working on the Time Wealthy Advantage the entire 3 years. It was just in my 36th month that I wanted to get the thing published. So as I wrote the book, I was learning along the way, learning about what people were wanting, learning what people were responding to, learning just stuff about myself. And that's why I was like really wanted to hammer out the book at one period of time. And I was like, you know what? This isn't about getting it done. It's about making it really, really good. And look, I'm really proud of how the Time Wealthy Advantage really came out. I mean, it was really, really good, and I'm getting lots of really, really good feedback on it. And not because I'm just looking for good feedback. I'm looking to make it better in the second edition. Now, I'm not really planning on writing a second edition yet, because I'm looking to write the next edition, which is called Leader Boss, the Time Wealthy Leader Boss, which is about being a leader and a boss. And most people don't know how to do those things at the same time. So this is again where you start thinking about different things that are important to you, and in that 36-month or in that 3-year business vision timeline, you are going to learn an awful lot up until that point. That's what the first 12 months is for, is to break down and learn as much as you can and test as much as you can and find out what's important to your market, to your avatar. Remember, 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And when you define your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar, and you get really clear on those 3 things, you can put content out there and make a product out there that's really important to them, that's going to solve their problems. So one of the things that I realized is that I could not put together a book that read like a textbook, because as it is, most of the people that I work with, they're already time weary. So I put something together that was really easy for them to read. It reads like a story. Why is that important? Because otherwise they're going to put the darn thing down. And I also realized, as much as I didn't want to, I had to narrate this thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, why am I narrating this thing? I did not want to spend the time. And it's a 7-hour narration. If you've never if you've never narrated a book, it's exhausting. Let me tell you for free, it is exhausting. That is, and I didn't realize how hard that is to do. It's not like just talking on a YouTube video. It's having the same inflection from the beginning to the end, and then recognizing that your voice sounds different in the morning than in the afternoon than in the evening. It just does. It might be your voice, but it does sound extremely different. And if you're recording, your first recording's in the morning and your second chapter's in the afternoon, your third chapter's in the middle of the night, all 3 of them are going to sound different. They just do, right? Just because your voice is that much different. So I'm just saying, these are the sorts of things that I had to learn along the way. And this is why when I had my 36-month or my 3-year business vision, I was learning all these different things up to then. Now, the other thing is, in my first year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get it written. And I was like, no. Again, we vastly overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, and vastly underestimate what we can accomplish in 3 and 5 and 10 years. So this is why I wasn't in a rush to get this book published. I was in a rush to make sure I was keeping pace and I was continuing to learn. And one of the things that I learned, interestingly enough, was how much people valued hearing the author's voice in a narration. So I had fully intended to hire that out and sub that out to someone else. And they said, no, we really like when authors narrate the books. I mean, almost universally, unless the author's just horrific, right? And I can think of a few examples. But the other thing is that when you're thinking about these sorts of things and you're getting feedback, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to put an Audible out there, because people want to hear the author's voice. So I hadn't intended to put an Audible out there. Well, guess what? Guess what I learned along the way? I learned that you can't put an Audible out there if you're using KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, which is on Amazon, and that was the platform I was going with. You can't upload an Amazon Audible unless you also have an ebook. I had zero intention of putting an ebook together. Well, guess what? You have to have an ebook in order to have an Audible, because it uses the same chapter settings as headings for each for each heading within Audible. I didn't know that. I was like, are you kidding me? So now I had to like put all this stuff together and learn how to do that and all these different things. But again, now that I'm ready, that now when I'm getting ready to publish Leader Boss, which is the next book in that series, so the Time Wealthy Leader Bosses are going to be about the leadership component that that recognizes the importance of organizational psychology in any business. And it's not just systems, right? It's not just systems in a business. It's not just psychology. It's systems and psychology. You've got to have an interwoven link of both. And that's what I was learning. These are all things that I was learning during that period of time. So again, that's what I'm saying. In your third year, your business vision, make that a knock the cover off the ball sort of endeavor. And guess what happened? In my third year, in 2025, which is when I published the Time Wealthy Advantage, I didn't publish just the Time Wealthy Advantage. I published 5 books this year. 5 books this year. And I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that because my knock the cover off the ball moment was publishing the Time Wealthy Advantage. But guess what? I had so much extra content, and I have a really amazing cover designer by the name Terry Capron. She is fantastic at what she does. And I said, hey, could you put a couple of other designs together for me, for one around accounting and one around these strategic one sheets that I had? And she put together all these different guides for me. So I was able to publish 4 additional guides, each one about 40 pages long. And they're meant to be more of like little novellas, which kind of just supported the original book. So guess what? I was able to sell all of these things for one package on my website. And people absolutely loved them. And they were just additional content that if I'd put them in the original book, the book would end up being like 500 pages. No one would have read this thing. So this is why I put these guides together, to make it much more readable. And people really appreciated that. So as a result, I ended up with more content and very, very happy customers who ended up buying the Time Wealthy Advantage and the additional guides. If you are interested in those guides, you can get them on Amazon, but I'll tell you what, you can get them cheaper. If you live in the US, I can get them to you for cheaper. If you go to strategicboardroom.com, go to my website, strategicboardroom.com, and click on the button that's right on the front page. You cannot miss it. It says buy book or something like that. Very simple. It'll take you to the book offer, and you can get that for free. Plus, there's some other bonuses in there that you will find out when you go there. Actually, pretty cool bonuses. You will enjoy those. So anyway, all that to say, that's really important when you start looking at that. Now, again, real quick about the books. If you're outside the US, go to Amazon. That's going to be your best bet. You'll get them much faster, and I can't offer shipping right outside the United States right now. So I know I have a lot of people that follow me outside the United States, which is incredibly humbling. I never realized I had that quite of a following, but have some folks. I had a really, really great conversation with some people who were in India that were just phenomenal folks. I did not realize how much is going on in different cities, in Bangalore and Mumbai and things like that. So truly humbled that you guys are following me out there, and thank you very much. Truly, truly humbling that you're watching my content. So here's the interesting thing, is that when you've got that 36-month timeline, or that 3-year timeline from month 25 to month 36, it's not about crossing the finish line at month 36 going, okay, here's where we're at. It's getting into month 25, knowing the trajectory that you're on. And that's exactly what happened with the Time Wealthy Advantage. I knew I had way more content than I could finish and put in one book. That's why I ended up with the 4 additional guides. So that's why I ended up publishing 5 books, completely independent ISBNs, which is the numbers, that is a international standardized book number, or international standard book number, for each of those 5 books. And I was able to get that done in 2025. All of that stemmed from what I learned in year 1. Okay, so let's say that we're starting year 1 at the beginning of the year on January 1st. This is where you're going to break and create that goal that's going to be about maybe 20 to 30% more of where you're at right now. Don't make such a crazy 1-year goal that if you don't get enough traction in the first couple of months, that you're going to abandon it. And that's what I end up seeing with a lot of folks, especially business owners and especially coaches and consultants and people like that, that if they don't get the traction that they want within the first couple of months, they get very, very discouraged and they start wandering and they start chasing other ideas. And this is not, it's not helpful to do that. So this is where you start to use that first year for learning. So if you haven't monetized yet, this might just be saying, hey, look, I want to get my first customer this year. And you might say, yeah, but I need 10 customers just to survive. Okay, that might be too far too fast. Especially if you don't have a proof of concept, meaning that you don't have any sales yet. So this is why it's important for you to start thinking about, okay, look, could you go that whole year without customers and use that entire year for learning? If you can't, that's okay. But then you can start to be a little bit more practical about the different things that you can test. Start testing different marketing pieces and be scientific with it. You have a control and you have a variable. Test the control and test the variable against that control. See which one works, and whichever one works better. And if they both suck, scrap them both and try something different. This is what experimentation is like. This is why marketing is far more about being scientific than it is about just coming up with the most pithy and funny and entertaining type of content, right? Like the stuff that I put out isn't potentially, all that entertaining. I mean, I know I've got a quirky sense of humor, but realistically, I want it to be high value. I want you to take this stuff that's really really important and put that into your own pocket and make it your own, and start to create different things that when you create that 12-month business vision, that might be 10 to 20% better than where you are today. That way you can create that 3-year business vision, month 25 to month 36, something crazy, knock the cover off the ball. That's what I want for you. So that way, when you get to month 36, you've had that whole year, that first 12 months of learning. Then that second year is about implementation and integration. Then that third year is about really pouring gas on all the things that you've learned. So I want you to think about that. And that's how I want you to consider your 12-month business vision. That's going to be in alignment with your third year business vision, your 3-year business vision. But that 12-month business vision is going to be a little bit more than where you're at today. Now, this is why, again, that 36-month is going to be knocked the cover off the ball. 12-month is a little bit more pragmatic. Great. Now we're going to break that 12-month down into 90-day projects. The 90-day projects, again, that first 90-day project is going to be about learning and testing, and you're just going to be putting as much stuff out there. And again, this is where you need to set aside any fear of ridicule, any fear of looking silly, any fear of looking dumb. Look, I just did a video that half the people that logged in couldn't hear me because one of the channels was turned off. I didn't know that, right? So the people on mobile couldn't hear me at all. Okay, I didn't know that. And I got a phone call. I'm like, why is so-and-so keep calling me up? I'm like, oh, because they couldn't hear me, right? I look like an idiot. I don't care. I'm going to put so much stuff up this year coming up that no one's going to even remember it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Who cares? Who cares? Don't be afraid of ridicule. Don't be afraid about getting it wrong. Don't be afraid about not getting it right, because you can get it wrong a lot more than right and still do pretty darn well. So this is what I want you to start to think about when you're breaking down your goals, and you start breaking down these things into 90-day projects. So I really want you to start thinking about that. Thinking about your 90-day projects specifically in terms of how you're going to break things down and what that's going to look like. Now, once you've broken down into 90-day chunks, you're going to break that 90-day chunk down into a monthly goal and into a weekly goal. A monthly goal and a weekly goal. So again, this is about you've got your 3-year business vision. You've got your 12-month business vision identified in terms of what that's going to be, right? So a little bit 20 to 30% more, maybe somewhere between 15 to 20% probably more ideal. Now you're going to break that down into a 90-day project. And now you're breaking that down into a monthly goal and a weekly goal. And the monthly goals and weekly goals are just tracking your progress. Remember, when you're tracking, all you're doing is you're looking and you're measuring 2 things. You're measuring your actions and you're measuring your results. That's it. And if you don't get the results you want, all you got to do is look at your actions and activities. That's it. So when we're starting to break out the work things that we're doing, the things that where is the actions and activities actually coming up, is you're breaking those down into a daily 5. Now, your daily 5 is up to 5 very specific things that you're doing every single day. up to 5 very specific things that you're doing every single day. And when you're breaking those things down into, again, these are up to 5 actions that are going to be the needle movers. I don't mean check email, check voicemail, stuff like that. That's silly. That doesn't make any sense. So why would you break those things down if you're breaking them down into like, okay, well, I'm going to check email and check my voicemail. Well, you're going to do that anyway. Like, I want these to be needle moving activities. Like this right now for me is a needle moving activity. I want you to think about what are the needle moving activities that you can do every day, every work day that you're going to work. Now, you should be taking a day off. I don't care what day it is. Most people, I take Sundays off, and I won't work on Sundays. And I will tell you, when you take a day off and truly take a day off, this is where you can really truly start to make more money, because now when you are working, you're far more effective. But it really is important that you take a day off, if as long as you're able. Sometimes you're just not able to. I get it, and I respect that. But really, this is about taking that time off. But when you are working and you have your daily 5, now for me, I like a daily 3. A daily 3 is far more effective for me than a daily 5. But again, it's up to 5 needle moving activities that are going to move you towards your weekly goals, towards your monthly goals, towards your 90-day projects. And your 90-day projects are in alignment with what? Your 12-month goals and your 36-month, your 3-year business vision. So all of that stuff is in alignment. And when you start to think about that, this is why it's also important when you get this all delineated and all figured out. I want you to set aside time for you to spend some time in enrollment. What do I mean by enrollment? Enrollment means getting the people who are close to you in your life and enrolling them into this vision, letting them know that this is important to you. When I decided to go back to school for my PhD, and I'm literally just in the beginning throes of it right now, I went to my bride and I said, hey, sweetheart, I really want to go back to school. I'm really serious about this. I really want to do this. She goes, okay. She's like, what's that going to take? I said, I don't know yet. I said, I mean, from what they're telling me, it's probably going to be a couple hours each day. Why do you think it was important for me to enroll her into that? Right? Because she was going to have to take up some slack at home. She was going to have to recognize that there's going to be some nights that I'm going to be home late because I've got homework to do that's got to be turned in before midnight. These are all things that's important to enroll people into your vision, right? It's also important to come up with those presuppositions. What would keep me from getting this goal, happening? What would prevent me from this goal becoming true? And this is why it's important for you to start thinking about all these things up front, right? And thinking about them up front, so when they do come along, you're ready for them. All right. So this is all how you do it. I just want to I'll wrap this up, put the fries in the bag here, but this is really important when you're starting to think about your 3-year business vision, your 1-year business vision, your 90-day projects, your monthly goals, your weekly goals, and your daily 5. And this is how I want you to start to think about this with your next year as you're heading into that. I want you to start by thinking of what your 3rd year, knock the cover off the ball, a most amazing life is going to be like in year 3. And then simply back off from that, right? So for those of you, I appreciate you sticking around. For those of you who are interested, if you like conversations like this, you can head over to our community. That is a free community right now. I will go ahead and that is published I put that in not only the description, but it's also in the comments. And that is the community there if you'd like to join me. And right now it is free. That will not always be the case. So if you are interested, my suggestion is get in now, because otherwise it's going to cost some money, which again, if you're not able to pay for that right now, I respect that, but I might not be your guy, right? I might not be someone who you might get the most benefit. You might have other things. If you can't afford it's going to be a little over $100. If you can't afford the $100 a month, you may have other things that you got to work on. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying that realistically, there's, for the amount of coaching and training and education and accountability that you'd be getting for that amount of money, if that's too much for you, then you probably have other things that you need to work on, because that is an absolute bargain. But anyway, I will land the plane here. Thank you so much for sticking around tonight. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. This is the last weekend of 2025. We're heading into 2026. We'll see you guys next time.